It's January 18th. This is Business and Social. It's Links with Friends.
Oh yeah, we forgot to say that time. Also, a reminder: if you didn't watch the previous episode, Chris is not with us. She has a disease, not a. She has a virus, I imagine.
We wanted her to keep away. I prefer to be able to breathe and or taste.
Yeah. We don't need her filthy social germs around us. And we have the collapse section, which is always fun.
There's so much collapse.
Except it's not fun because like life is really starting to suck because of all this. But hey, you should be aware of it, right? This one, however, should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody. This collapse started a long time before the current problems.
DirecTV lays off hundreds of managers as cord cutting accelerates. I mean, if I were a shareholder, I would actually be asking why they didn't do this a year ago.
What could they be managing? That's 10% of the corporate staff. And some companies that tried to capitalize on the big social media exodus, not doing so well.
Parler's parent company has laid off a majority of its staff because if their time to shine was going to be any time, it was going to be shortly after the Musk takeover. Let that sink in.
Didn't happen.
It did not.
And of course, the crypto space continues to collapse.
Coinbase to cut 20% jobs, abandoned several projects to weather downturns in the crypto market. Now, I tried to figure out, Coinbase had announced some cuts already. Was this 20% more, or are they just bringing the total up to 20%? They're not real clear on that. Because remember, wasn't it like 10% about 3 months ago?
I don't think any number is final at this point. You always have to expect more. Because we've already seen several companies bump it up more. Mm-hmm. Amazon went from 10 to 18.
Yep.
I think. Didn't IBM do something? And if you look at PC sales, especially laptop sales, it becomes very obvious everybody bought one in the last 2 years and they ain't thinking about upgrading.
Nope.
They're happy with what they've got. So what can you do?
With PC sales down, laptop makers turn to services. Okay, what would you buy? Laptop insurance? Cleaning service?
It's all sort of,
buy?
It's nebulous AI companions. That's what they're selling. They're offering you AI to do a variety of things that you don't need AI to do. I don't know who that's going to convince in these economic times. So that means ultimately they're going to have to start building laptops that fall apart quicker.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where we're headed. I mean, that's already Apple, right? I mean, I love watching the failures. It's like, oh, this is a really common charger failure on this particular model. Apple, blah, blah, blah. Because Apple's really got it down to a science.
The screens.
The keyboard switches.
And that whole phone refresh cycle, remember that was every year? And people were just doggedly waiting. It's like, oh my God, it's the new Samsung. I've got to have it. Well, those days are over.
Secondhand and refurbished phone market take flight amid inflation hike. I actually legit know somebody that just bought a Samsung Galaxy S20. I think the 22 or 23 is the current model. 23, I think it's 23 is the current model. They bought a used S20 with a brand new battery for $300, and it runs really well, like shockingly well.
I'm still using the S10. It's fine. It does what I needed to do. Don't need to spend money on phone.
Might need a battery.
This battery's kind of okay. And, of course, we talked about FTX a little bit in the government section, but there's so much more. There's a never-ending supply of news stories about this situation.
Failed crypto exchange FTX has recovered about $5 billion, the attorney says. The Reuters article is really interesting. There's some other interesting nuggets in here, too. Like they're trying to claw back money that they gave charities. We have a separate article about that? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But that's $5 billion of their valuation of $30 billion. So not a huge percentage. They now have done the accounting. He gave away an astonishing amount of money. And I don't think anybody should be giving any of that back.
Probably not.
If you give it to charity, hey, it's gone.
500 million of it also went to Robinhood, of which we got another story about that as well. FTX attempted to recover millions to donated charities. Oops.
Some of them have given it back. I would not.
Yeah.
But they pointed out that a couple of them had already spent it, and they're like, sorry, bro.
It's gone.
Can't get that back to you. We've already used it. Wow. Just crazy how we spread that money around. And yeah, he bought those Robinhood shares, and this was like a little hidden away.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of the main stuff, but they tracked it down.
Robinhood shares worth nearly $500 million seized in FTX case. The stock was owned via a holding company. So that's sort of fun. Oh, from the first article, that $5 billion figure doesn't include whatever the Bahamas people got, which was a lot. Although the Bahamas people are apparently still holding a lot of the wallets that contain the actual FTX tokens and stuff, which they think is worth a lot. So the New York attorney that's handling the prosecution here said, oh, the people in the Bahamas only have, $150 or $200 million. That's kind of a lot. But the people in the Bahamas say, oh, we've got about $3.5 billion. So
a lot of people are going to make a lot of money off of all this.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, you didn't find that wallet? I'll put that over here. We'll save that for later. And here is an interesting thing, and it's not surprising because the terms of service is always going to be against you in a radical way. Here's the thing about it, though. If you think this is outrageous, when you deposit money into a bank, of course, we have FDIC. But outside of that, you are an unsecured creditor to the bank, meaning that you get paid back last. Same as this.
bad news for thousands of crypto investors. They don't own their accounts.
That's just kind of how it all works. Once you sign the agreement and give people your money, it's theirs.
See, that's why I thought that, like, in the government section where, like, the SEC is, doing all their stuff, reading that article made me think, oh, it is more like the micro lending services in Kiva and just, a website where some crypto bros can get together to do crypto bro things.
Yeah. Well, and this kind of fraud has existed.
Yeah.
But it just didn't have the hype around it.
Yeah.
So many people got caught up in crypto that it made it so easy to do this.
Yeah.
And JP Morgan, they, like many of the big companies, big banks, were looking at ways to merge and acquire and get this hot new technology that they do not have for themselves. But much like, what was the car company that GM invested in where that was totally fake? The one where they slanted was that Rivian or?
No, Rivian's actually good. It was, I don't remember.
Anyway,
Chat knows.
There was an electric car company that was totally fake. They didn't have an engine. They didn't have anything. They had an empty truck that they put on a downslope and made a video. This is the same thing. They had nothing.
JP Morgan sues fintech founder for fraud. This had to do with student loans and keeping track of students. They said they had 4 million accounts. They did not have 4 million accounts.
They just bought public data.
Yeah.
Turns out you can buy records of students. They did, created accounts for everybody, and they were like, hey, you want to buy this?
And JP Morgan said, yeah, that sounds good.
We love it. Astonishing. Like, you think you would send in one engineer.
Yeah, to just...
And be like, just poke around, see what's happening. See what those users are up to right now.
It's funny, though, because apparently one of the things that set this off is somebody else was sniffing around other than JP Morgan about buying them. And they accidentally or on purpose disclosed to that potential buyer. It's like, oh, this is where the accounts came from. And they just noped right out. JP Morgan says, as a result of that, they did not disclose that to JP Morgan to prevent them from going away.
Well, then that was the same story with the car company, right? Yeah. Somebody else was looking at them and they're like, oh, no. Wait a minute, GM gave you money? And then it all unraveled. And IBM, one of the big layoff companies, they got a lot of backlash for that. It's a bad PR move when you start laying people off.
They lost their ageism suit, too.
Yeah, so tough times. They can't have any more bad PR, and yet they want to continue laying off. How can you accomplish this?
IBM staff grumble, redeployment orders are stealth layoffs. And this article on the Register has a quote from somebody who's been there 2 years. And the only thing I could think of was, don't say Dino Baby, don't say Dino Baby, don't say Dino Baby. As he was, because that's what they called them in the memo. That's got them in trouble for their ageism suit. It's like that guy's manager's, you should probably look for another position within IBM you can move to. And that guy said, but I might have to move or relocate. It's like, don't say Dino Baby, don't say Dino Baby.
Maybe they're just hoping they'll die. Yeah. But it's interesting because a lot of these people are given, they're like, okay, do some of your work and then spend the other half of your day finding a new home for yourself within IBM.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they give them any tools to do that. Like, how do you go about that? Well, one guy said, yeah, I've been basically doing nothing for 4 months, and I just go in every day, and no one wants me. No one else wants to hire me, and they're still paying me, but they're not giving me any work to do. So
Oh, it's a glitch in the payroll department. We just fixed the glitch. It's so bad. So bad. The collapse is coming. It's so bad. Maybe they can go to work at Lowe's.
that's the second direct correlation to Office Space we've had just in January.
Yeah.
Because the other guy used the theft technique successfully and got caught.
Yeah, I mean, it's the economic collapse is coming, and I make the Lowe's joke because if you are in any local home supply store, just look for little things like, like the plumbing fittings. There's a million plumbing fittings, and it's like, is this 2 inch? Is it 3 inches? Is it 1.5 inches? Is it 1.25 inches? Is this Schedule 40, or is this something that you hook up to your gutters, which is a different thing? It's much thinner, harder material than the Schedule 40 PVC stuff. Everything is all sorted in the wrong spot. All the PEX fittings, you got PEX A and PEX B, those are all in the wrong bins. And you go online and it says you have 30 of these in stock. The bin is completely empty, or the wrong thing is in the bin. Nobody can sort or organize. Nobody will help you come cut wire. Nobody will help you find the right lumber. And if we can't have anybody doing those jobs and the similar jobs at the grocery store and everything else, then we're on the brink of a collapse.
One thing I've been doing is pickup ordering distilled water that I know they don't have. And the other day I actually got Dollar General. I ordered 6. I got 2 and they were like covered in dirt and tape. They were clearly in the back, buried somewhere, and they're like, oh God, we can't fill this order. Go see what we've got. And they managed to dig 2 out of a corner somewhere.
I got water. It's funny, you got old water. I got water so old that was like that, and it was super dusty, and I was like, I don't care, I'll drink it. But that water tastes way different.
It's the plastic leaching. That's why water has a expiration date, I think. Because the plastics are so detrimental to life. And Apple, of course, we know Apple has just done everything the government wants. If you're talking about the Chinese government, and they catch a lot of flack for that. They do a lot to suppress any sort of dissent. They are now being called on the carpet for that.
Apple promises to disclose more details about app removals. So these are VPN apps that were removed in Hong Kong, for example, or other sorts of things. You think we'll see nutrition labels? I'd like to see some kind of a nutrition label for this. Because you know how when you buy cookies and stuff, you can sort of go online and figure out, okay, how much rat poop is allowed to be in the vat of cookie dough before this thing is made into a cookie.
But that would only be useful for the Chinese citizens. China would never mandate that, right?
Well, I mean, but what if it's a federal law and then they can go on the Chinese citizens can go on the U.S. federal website and be like, oh, the Chinese go.
I bet Chinese citizens can't get to U.S. federal websites.
That's horrifying. There's a nutrition label and it's like, this percentage of Uyghur kidney went into your iPhone.
Well, it didn't go into the iPhone. It went into the CCP politician who allowed the plant that made your iPhone because you gave him the kidney.
Dark.
And the App Store, it makes a lot of money. That walled garden is useful for a lot of things, not necessarily security. That's a false representation, but it's really good at funneling money into Apple.
App Store developers have earned $320 billion to date, says Apple. Let me finish the headline there. In thinly veiled threat to politicians not to mess with them. If you mess with us, we will wreck this $320 billion economy of developers that we pay them. But another interpretation of this is that Apple is gatekeeping commerce here by forcing developers to send $320 billion of commerce through them. It'd be like IBM when they invented the IBM PC saying, oh, look, we're responsible for Microsoft and ultimately Apple and Compaq and Hewlett-Packard and Dell and all these other companies, and all of that commerce is attributable to us.
IBM's definitely tried to make that argument. The world was more sane in those days. They didn't get to. And everything is going to subscription services. A lot of these companies have figured out that if they can't sell you a new phone every year, then they want to extract money from you every month. Although Microsoft seems to understand the reality of the economic situation.
Microsoft 365 Basic is a new $1.99 a month with 100 gigabytes of storage and more. get people used to it, and then change it. That's Microsoft's MO.
They will also be pulling some features from some of those to not be in the free version anymore.
Microsoft moved some Teams features to more costly premium edition. Those features are free right now. Live translated captions, which you can do yourself with some free software. Timeline markers in Teams meetings for recording, so when a user left or joined meetings, which you can do yourself with some free software. Scroll down. Virtual appointments, SMS notifications. Can't do that one. That one's broken and stupid. Virtual appointments, organizational analytics for the team admin center. Who cares? Scheduled queue view. Okay, whatever. And together mode scenes. Yeah, okay, whatever.
That's 10 a month. So for your full baseline Microsoft package, assuming you want Teams, you're up to 12.
Yeah.
12 a month.
They can't just charge the same and add features over time. They have to take features away and charge more.
Gotta get you hooked.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the drug dealer way of doing it.
Well, that's the way it's always been with Microsoft. So, like, if you're a Microsoft, like a gold or silver partner, they've been slowly making it worse. And, in the beginning, as well, like we've got the ransomware story with Rackspace. It's going to fit real good here. And I'll talk about that more then. But Microsoft just keeps, it's like the Darth Vader. It's like, pray I don't alter the deal further. They keep altering the deal to make it harder for the people that move Microsoft products.
And if you have been opting out of the deal for many, many years and doggedly hanging on to your old Microsoft operating system, that will also be taken from you.
While Windows 7 has a fighting chance, it's game over for Windows 8.1. If you upgraded from Windows 7 to 8.1, sorry, bad news. You got to go to 10 or bad things.
My system locked up the other day while I was watching a video on VLC, and I was like, oh God, is my GPU dying? No, it wanted to reboot so it could invite me to Windows 11.
Yeah. Don't you love that?
I've only turned it down 7 or 8 times at this point.
Are you really sure? We've got a new version of Windows 11. Do you want that one? No.
And the MSI Afterburner is a big thing that a lot of people use in order to benchmark things. However, the developer is locked away over in evil Russia. They literally cannot give him money. That is illegal. So what are they going to do? I guess maybe they're just going to steal it.
MSI intends to continue with Afterburner overclocking app despite not paying its Russian developer. Listen, I don't know if level 1 is the channel for this, but if MSI wants to fund some sort of, black ops, like get that guy out of the country in a crate. What was that? Was it Operation Teardrop? What was that? World War II? Paperclip. Was it Operation Paperclip?
Paperclip is where we took the N words that I can't say and brought them over here and put them in charge of all our industry. Yeah. That was Von Braun and the Rockets.
We need that, like MSI. That would be a hell of a YouTube video series. It's like Operation Paperclip. Get the devs out of Russia.
That'd be great. You get a couple of like the popular YouTubers out of there too.
Yeah. It's like we have saved Messi the Puma. Is that the right country? Did I get that right?
I think he's in Russia. Be tough, a lot tougher to get a cat out, like a giant cat. He's kind of chill, but I don't know.
We got to think movie rights here. We got The Rock as the guy, and then something else with Messi the Puma. I think it would be a some great comedy relief for that movie.
Yeah, but what if? Because if we were willing to trade the Merchant of Death for a basketball player nobody's ever heard of, what would we have to trade to get back The Rock?
I'm thinking movie rights. The actual team that does it, I wouldn't want celebrities leading the Extraction team.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So you want
the movie rights?
Yeah, you want to do like a Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
It's like we do the real thing and then we monetize it on the other end.
Yeah.
Well, this was our weekly woke nonsense. Someone did not read the history of why they named it that.
Yeah.
Because it's got nothing to do with Native Americans.
The register, the headline is Native Americans urge the Apache Software Foundation to ditch its name. So that they dug up a quote and something somebody said here about some Apache documentary, blah, blah, blah. But it literally is the Apache web server or a Apache web server. That's what it's been.
Because they made a web server and they were like, it doesn't work well. We keep having to patch it. It's kind of patchy. Apache web server.
The interviewer misunderstood. I understood it. I think. I'm sure somebody from the Internet Archive can fill us in here.
They were just looking for outrage. What if they renamed it to just spell it that way?
This is also the same group that harasses Jeep every now and then. They should rename the foundation to the Patchy Foundation.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I don't think it would satisfy them. There is no satisfying that horror show. And we got some new hardware this week, and Intel has once again clawed their way to the top of the CPU clock speed.
And Intel unveils its Core i9 13900KS Raptor Lake speed, spreads its wings up to 6.0 gigahertz. Don't get super excited. It's really only 5.8 gigahertz out of the box. It's got the thermal velocity boost that'll hit 6 gigahertz. So it'll hit 6 gigahertz for about 250 milliseconds on the most ridiculous cooling that you can muster.
It's also just Silicon Lottery exceptions from the old chip.
Yeah.
So shows you how much you can lose that lottery. And now you got less a chance of winning because they're picking all the lottery winners out.
If you pick a nice motherboard and fast RAM, like 7200 RAM, you can get within 5% with the i7 for gaming. So, I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know.
Got to get the headlines, though. And Apple, they announced a lot of new stuff, and we'll talk about it, but there's nothing groundbreaking.
Nope.
They don't have a new gimmick for any of their products. So maybe they're going to go back and reintroduce gimmicks that everybody else has already done, but they've already avoided.
Yep. Apple reportedly working on touchscreen Macs, including MacBook Pro. This is because they decided they want to be able to run, my opinion is that they've decided they want to be able to run M1 iPad applications on Mac laptops, and they honestly can't come up with anything that is not completely insane for mapping the touchpad interface to the iPad interface for laptops. So it's like, oops. So it's like, okay, let's add touch to the Mac so you can use a Mac like an iPad. And then, ta-da, you can run iPad apps on a MacBook. That's all this is. And that's going to be the one more thing that everybody loses their mind about.
And it seems like Apple, they've always been forward thinkers. God, this is hilarious because our paywall alternative for this story is Newsmax, and we immediately get Mike Lindell. But what Apple's doing is, I think they're probably trying to get as much of that homeland tech money as they can, while consolidating their power. It's a smart play.
Apple to use its own screens starting in 2024. Probably what they're doing is buying old screen fabrication equipment that was going to the shredder, and they're just deploying that in the desert somewhere. We don't have any details, but this is what they say. We need high quality screens. No, Apple is not interested in building high quality screens. Apple is building something cheaper.
And it's not just the screens. They are really looking to consolidate everything under their umbrella.
Apple is reportedly making an all-in-one cellular Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip, which, if the regulators in our country were competent, they would look at all the documents in the Qualcomm, Apple, Intel, corrupt, I don't want to use the word because of demonetization, three-way of insanity to see what unscrupulous things Apple did with Qualcomm and Intel for their radio. And if you look at what Intel was doing with 5G, you would never allow this. They should be prohibited just because of monopoly concerns, because of their sociopathic behavior in the past. Our lawmakers are not paying attention.
Well, I think they are. I think they're hearing exactly what they want to hear from Apple.
This will make the share price go up. Okay.
And maybe the only thing that could move that share price, considering that everything else that they're rolling out right now is kind of old hat and there's nothing innovative. They do have one product this year that could impress us. I don't know.
Apple's mixed reality headset could arrive this year. Okay.
They haven't told us anything about it.
This entire article is based on one sentence.
It seems it will be a ski goggle form factor.
Yeah.
That's weird. I guess it could be comfortable.
It'll be interesting if that turns into a fashion accessory. It is scary how many AirPods there are just everywhere.
Yeah. It seems like more and more, I think they're doing product placement for AirPods on TV and stuff like that. Or just like super rich people. Because I see a lot of them when they're taking photo ops and whatever, they got the AirPods.
Yeah.
I bet that's not organic. And Apple, if there's been anything that has pointed to economic downturn, it's Apple skipping a year. Yeah. That is not something they do.
Apple is no longer planning to release the iPhone SE 4. They're just going to sell you the old SE because they've already made them and they haven't sold them, so they're not going to make more.
There's plenty to go around, plenty in the warehouse still. And I suppose the previous big innovation that Apple did was the watch with the blood sensor and the oxygen sensor and the emergency fall sensors and stuff like that. That was somewhat innovative, but as Apple often does, they may have stolen all of that.
Apple Watch patent infringement confirmed as Massimo seeks an import ban. That's a medical company that makes those kinds of sensors. And it seems they weren't consulted. And so they're saying, we patented this. Apple, you need to pay rights.
Oh, they were consulted. That's kind of the nail in the coffin. It's not like, well, two people could come up with the same idea. It's a good idea. Apple met with them, headhunted several of their executives, and then put the blood sensor in.
It's reminiscent. You remember the touchpad company? I can't remember the name of it because this was like the 90s. The story of that is really interesting.
You mean the initial conductive glass thing?
No, it was the wheel. It was the click wheel.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, it played out almost exactly the same way, and it was going very badly from a legal standpoint for Apple. And ultimately, Apple's way out was to just buy them.
I guess that would be a boon for that company. They can certainly afford it. Microsoft doesn't seem to know quite what to do with its product lineups. It's going to keep chasing the foldable market.
Microsoft has scrapped plans for a dual-screen Surface Duo 3, but they will be doing a new foldable screen design. There were some interesting devices at CES that were with foldable screens, but as many new laptops and other stuff as we saw at CES, I'm not really surprised with the economic downturn, but usually everybody's really excited about new laptops at CES. This year stands out in my mind as one of the few years where no one cared at all, like not even a little bit. And the laptops are actually, I think, cooler than they've been in a couple of years. Well, certainly like 5 years.
I've never been able to get excited about technology that I'll never be able to afford.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, look at this new Ferrari. No interest. I'm never going to have that.
Well, I mean, CS, it was like the $1,200 laptop. It's like, wow, $1,200 gets you a lot of laptop these days. But, people were not excited about it.
Think about economically.
Yeah.
Half the population doesn't have $1,000.
Yeah.
So and then cut that back, things are bad. Now, I only included one story here. I actually cut another one because I had a paywall. But this headline is not real. Obviously,
shame on you, Reuters.
Some other news organizations covered it a little bit more solidly. We're just going to go with this one, but just keep in mind this headline totally fake.
Pretty sure this is a paid article on Reuters. Deere & Company will allow farmers to repair their own equipment. Let me just fix it. Asterisk, and then you look at the asterisk. It will allow them to replace lug nuts on 3 out of the 4 wheels.
You can't bypass the emission system. You can't touch any kind of proprietary software system, which is the whole thing.
Yeah.
There were a couple other rules that you couldn't do. Basically nerfs the whole thing.
Yeah.
They point out how what John Deere saw was state legislation stacking up against them. And they were like, oh, let's get ahead of that. And also in the statement, they were like, we don't need all this messy legislation. We just need this memorandum of understanding. They did another memorandum of understanding in 2018. Guess what that led to?
The mess that we find ourselves in now.
Basically nothing.
Yeah.
More control from the green. And Microsoft, they put a lot of eggs in the government contract basket, but they forgot to deliver an item that was useful.
The headline is Congress deals blow to Microsoft's HoloLens combat goggles. But the really scorching thing is in the report from some Congress critter who wrote that I don't even think it's mentioned in this article, but they were approved for more HoloLenses, but Congress denied funding. And the reason is because apparently there's a lot of bugs with this model, and they say no, we want you to. We haven't seen any concrete plan to address the usability issues, which include making the operators violently ill after 3 hours of use. And these are sold to the Army as something that they could wear for 16 hours a day.
That is going to reduce your battlefield awareness across the board and get you killed.
Especially if you're violently ill.
I wonder if those will end up like on eBay or something. It'd be fun to see how bad they are. You get one for like $50.
Like, oh, look, I'm projectile vomiting. Film at 11.
And Raspberry Pi, they had a huge supply chain issue. It seems like it's about to work its way back out. You can actually finally get them again now, I think. And they're finally introducing new products because they can get chips again.
Raspberry Pi launches a new higher resolution camera module, and now with autofocus. Camera module 3 with an M12 mount lens option.
If you're looking to save money, that's certainly one way to do it if you have a use case for those. And we have all new TVs. Something tells me that the Super Bowl TV buying blitz will be somewhat muted this year.
Samsung bets big on micro LED and 8K for its premium 2023 TVs. If you're thinking this will trickle down to computer monitors, not for a while, because the smallest TV that Samsung makes with the micro LED is like 55 inches?
Goes
50
from
inches.
50 to 140.
Yeah. So micro LEDs are great for that, but not great for... They're great for things you sit far away from, but not for things you sit up close at. OLED is still king there. But there were a lot of OLED displays at CES, though. So that's maybe nice.
And in the sound world, a gimmick that maybe gives you the ability to downsize your sound setup because you can't afford the full thing, although this is quite pricey for what it is.
Yeah. Razer made a sound bar that tracks your head to optimize sound. $400 for the Leviathan V2 Pro. Contains a built-in IR camera to adjust its sound based on the listener's location.
That's the other thing, is that camera data is going to be sold to subsidize the cost of the product.
What if the part of your brain that gives you spatial awareness from audio is broken?
Probably wouldn't pick that up then. Just turn the sound off altogether, right?
Well, no, I can still hear things.
And some F's in the chat, not just for Krista and her diseased throat, but also for the Fairphone.
Fairphone 2 will hit end of life after 7 years of updates, which is an epic run. The system on chip came out in 2016, but Fairphone has kept on trucking. Where's the Fairphone 3 or 5, 7?
Probably didn't make as much money as they had hoped.
Oh.
And the cloud world has shifted in a big way. These guys were behind the ball. They couldn't keep up. And then...
This is 100% Microsoft's fault. This is not these guys.
But then they got ransomware, and that seems to have been the nail in the coffin.
The end. A Rackspace founder says it's on the trajectory of death. Other former Rackers, not so sure. So this is Rackspace. If you're not in the know, Rackspace got hit with ransomware because of Microsoft Exchange. But the real story here is that Microsoft basically had already screwed anybody that was still running Exchange anywhere other than the cloud. They're just sort of checked out on security or focused on the Exchange stuff in the cloud pretty much. So this is their punishment. Like Rackspace actually had a viable, good, historically good product for Exchange in the cloud that wasn't Microsoft, which some people like. You know, you don't want to run... Because Microsoft, you know, if the feds show up and Microsoft, it's just like, yeah, sure, here, have a copy of their tenant. We don't care, whatever. And, you know, maybe Rackspace in San Antonio would comply with Texas law and, you know, let you know some other things. Some people are more comfortable having their owned infrastructure that's, you know, in Rackspace's cloud as opposed to the generic cloud. Anyway, they get hit with ransomware because of the Exchange thing, and it took out all of their customers. And so overnight, their business is gone. It's very sad.
And there's a lot of easy one-click solutions from all the other cloud providers. It's like, oh, we'll take care of you.
Yeah. But those solutions are really just reselling Microsoft Exchange in Microsoft's cloud, which, you know, after the change in the partner agreements last year, Microsoft can directly contact your customers, which is something they promised never to do. So I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
And this I just thought was fascinating because, you know, every January we've got to have a new weight loss fad. This one is pretty wild.
Myocyte offering electromuscle stimulation in Milwaukee. So you go in and you do 10 minutes of exercise, but it makes electrical resistance and exhausts your muscles such that it feels like it's, what, a 30-minute workout or something like that?
They're literally doing like anime training.
Yeah.
Condensed training. I imagine it's very expensive. I don't know if there's a home unit.
The commentary from the individual that wrote the article, they tried it and they said they were exhausted after 10 minutes, and it sounded like they had a regular, cardio routine and that they could go like, an hour on.
That would be nice to be able to condense your suffering down into one really tough 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Probably end up killing a bunch of people though. We just got some news a couple of weeks ago about the Fusion, and everybody was hyped about that. Of course, the reality is it's going to take decades probably. And now we find out even more bad news.
International nuclear fusion project may be delayed by years, its head admits. This is the one in France. Sorry.
They had rust and they ordered the wrong parts. That's going to add like 5 to 10 years to the time of the project. That was poor project management. Not sure that guy should still be in charge. Oh, I should have put this with the other hardware. This is exactly what I was talking about. You have to have a gimmick for CES.
Yeah.
And when you've got nothing, it's just like, well, let's just cobble some stuff together.
Lenovo's YogaBook 9i is an unprecedented laptop for people who hate foldables. It's 2 screens, and the keyboard docks to the bottom screen, but also pops off and will become that monstrosity, which is kind of cool, I guess.
It's a lot of configurations that are interesting. I wonder how well that hinge is going to hold up to always staying in that position.
The hinge is probably fine. They made one that was like this, that with it was a LCD on one side and e-ink on the other, and that was a good piece of hardware, but the software was absolute trash. I feel like if they had done that hardware with good battery life and really put a lot of software engineering into it, it could have been incredible, but they didn't, and so it's garbage. If you got one you want to send me, let me know.
Here's a story I've been hearing a lot about, not just from Microsoft. This seems to be a hot new trend. I know there's a barb in there somewhere. I can't figure out exactly how. I can't imagine they're going to let people get away with this.
Microsoft employees are getting unlimited time off. Microsoft will no longer require U.S. employees to formally record vacation days thanks to new discretionary time off policy. I don't know that it's paid time off.
Yeah, but still, that's crazy. Just no rules about it. Just do whatever you want. Why? It doesn't make sense because we should have a super rich hiring pool right now, right? Because everybody's getting laid off. Or is it that you're trying to keep your best workers?
I think you're trying to keep your best workers.
Because that's all you're going to be able to afford.
Right.
Anybody work at Microsoft, you should immediately test this. See what they'll let you get away with.
There's some people that we know that have been at Microsoft more than 10 years, and they're a little salty about it because that was one of their things that they've been working toward, is having, a month, 6 weeks of paid time off a year, and they feel a little slighted because of it.
If you masked vacation time, they're going to pay it all off in a monetary amount when this kicks in. I can't remember what they said they're going to give you for it. Interesting, though. Last week, we talked about several major luxury car companies and their subscription services and how they had all been compromised and hacked, and it was horrible. The Ferrari one, you could just reassign the ownership of the car, which makes this more terrifying.
BMW doubles down on paid subscriptions in the USA, charges $105 a year for a remote engine start.
That's insane. You don't deserve money if you're going to pay for that.
That is ridiculous. I mean, so just no, stop that. No.
And of all the tech companies that are just getting smashed by all of the downturn and bought too much inventory during the pandemic and all blah, 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 there is always one who weathers every storm and only gets stronger.
Steam reaches 10 million concurrent in-game players for the first time. Concurrently online also surpassed 32 million. Woo!
Number one during that 10 million, of course, CSGO. Still going strong.
I wonder if you could travel back in time and tell old Gabe, it's like you're going to have one of the most played games of all time in human history.
He probably was like, of course I am. You know who I am?
I'm Gabe Newell. Rawr.
And Elon Musk, not as successful with his businesses, although some of them are doing quite well. However, he's now starting to catch a lot of the flack from all of the horrible stuff he did in the past. He's going to have a lot of court time in his future. He wants to try to make that as advantageous as possible for him.
Musk says he can't get a fair trial in California, and he wants to go to Texas. What's he on trial for? When he said that he's going to take Tesla private at $420 a share. That's finally set to actually go to trial in a couple of weeks. And so he's saying, no, let's go to Texas.
But that's not the SEC trial. That was all settled and stuff. And they were like, you have to have a lawyer look over your tweets. That never happened. This is the shareholders suing him, saying that he destroyed the value of the Tesla shares. If they show a stock chart of Tesla in that trial, it might not look good for the jury.
Yeah. Well, that was his argument. Is like the stock is not doing well because of the Twitter thing, and all of the news coverage in California is negative. So we have to put off the trial.
Well, the news coverage everywhere is negative. I don't know what he's thinking. The world has turned against Elon Musk in a big way, or at least the corporate world has, the news world. And Meta, we have already seen their downsizing, but it seems like the people in charge there want even more.
Meta's technology chief reportedly told employees that the higher headcount has led to quote unquote untenable slow movement, including meetings that take a month to schedule.
Think about this hell, because we all have to go to meetings. Yeah. They're awful. How about a 50-person meeting?
Ugh.
And you have to have a pre-meeting with its own agenda and documentation before you do the regular meeting.
Fascinating.
Wonder why they're losing money. Why can't the metaverse exist?
Why can't people just get out of the way and let you do what you're good at?
And Elon Musk is saying, why are these plebs not buying my hardware? Just buy a VR headset. They're great, but they might not be the best long-term investment.
Meta abandons the original Quest VR headset. Wonder if Palmer Luckey is... No! Is that the guy? Is that the original guy?
Oh, the Oculus guy?
Oh, that was Oculus. Yeah. Quest VR. This is the one after that, then, isn't it? They're going to do security updates until 2024, but otherwise, that's it. That's all you get.
And after that point, you cannot be a part of Horizon Worlds, which is the meat of the metaverse. So there's no like getting on the metaverse with your old hardware. No, there's going to be a running cycle of headset hardware that is just going to fall off.
Are they literally gatekeeping the metaverse?
Which no one wants to go there anyway. They're putting a velvet rope in front of a dumpster fire.
But I just want to stay warm. No.
And we learned about Parler not doing too well, weren't able to capitalize on the Twitter turnover. Turns out that's not rare. It seems like all those sanctimonious Twitter users quietly shuffled back to their comfortable home.
Elon Musk drove more than 1 million people to Mastodon, but many aren't sticking around. It's the engagement magic. Can we have IRC with GIFs? What happened to IRC?
You got to make it dead simple though. Mastodon was annoying.
Yeah.
So it's great when you're like, oh, we got to decentralize it. We're going to make it open and all that stuff. Guess what? Most people don't care. It's just complicated and they don't like that.
It's really sad too, because there is a lot of opportunity for open source developers to learn some lessons there in a introspective kind of way. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, like, point and laugh. It's like, there's a lot of things to be learned from that by looking at how normal users interact with your software. And those lessons are not going to be learned.
I get it. A lot of times you'll go in, something's got like just an awful interface, but then you learn to use it really well and you're like, oh, I like this. It's fast. I can use keyboard shortcuts. It's all good, but nobody's going to put in the work to get there. It's a weird thing that you got to consider with software. And Elon Musk, a very rich man. He has a lot of experience with how very, very rich people and entities with a lot of money can sort of cheat along the margins and keep that money. And oh boy, is he pulling out all the stops for poor Twitter.
Twitter tells staff in Singapore office to clear their desks and work from home. He also has, the article points out that he also stopped paying rent for their San Francisco headquarters, and the landlord there is suing him. So probably the same thing is happening in Singapore. It's like, it's got to suck there. It's like, hey, we own the office building. You're not paying your rent. It's like, I'm planning on moving out. It's like, but You're still here. You have to pay your rent at least until you move out. Nah.
That's also when we found out he had all those homes and stuff, sometimes they just won't pay their mortgages.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know that the penalty for this is it's less expensive than the money I can make using this money elsewhere. So I'll just deal with it. Because I'm mega rich. There's really nothing you can do to me.
That's horrifying.
And Seattle schools, they're probably not wrong about this, but I think if we made a list of things that are bad for high school students, wouldn't like sugar be at the top?
Yeah.
Why aren't we going after the sugar corporations?
Seattle schools sued TikTok and Meta and other social platforms over the youth mental health crisis, quote unquote. Okay. Preview of the nonsense section that's coming.
I would say that should be the purview of their parents. That's who should be dealing with that.
The parents' class action lawsuit. Okay.
Who bought the electronic device? And I think we can all agree that TikTok creators can get really annoying.
Yeah.
And you can just say, well, I don't use TikTok. I don't associate with those people. But what if they won't leave you alone?
Please don't film me in 2023. Unsuspecting people can get pulled into TikTok content without even knowing it. Can we leave that behind in 2022?
So they point out this video where this dude walks up, girl's wearing an AC/DC t-shirt, and he says, hey, name 3 AC/DC songs, as just to gatekeep her on her fandom. And she dismisses him with a wave of her hand. That's definitely how you should treat TikTokers.
Yeah.
But it can still be very annoying. And her face is still in the video.
Yeah.
Still out there. She's being celebrated for it, but she might not want to be.
Eh.
46 minutes for that. I knew that was going to be a long one. A lot of business this week.
We did pretty good, though. The collapse really is horrifying. The Lowe's thing just, like, if your local businesses are not functional anymore, I don't know what to tell you.
This is a brand new world for all of us.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many people who are alive. And even if there are people alive who lived through the Great Depression, there's probably not enough parallels.
Well, it's like the grocery store I kind of get. It's like, oh, there's a supply problem and blah, blah, blah. But at Lowe's, judging by their inventory numbers, the inventory's there. It's just they lack the mental capacity to just put tab A into box A and tab B into box B.
Well, you got a labor crisis too, right?
Apparently. I mean, we have a labor crisis, but then also it seems like the jobs numbers are both up and down. The number of skilled jobs is down. The number of unskilled jobs is up.
Right.
And yet we still can't sort tab A into
more of that service transition.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily add a lot of value.
And that'll have a compound negative economic impact, though, because the higher level stuff can't get the supplies it needs in order to function. So that'll just be a series of endless delays.
Maybe after a decade of pain, we have a strong manufacturing base in America again, and our middle class can reemerge. Something tells me that our government will mess that up.
Horrifying.
We'll see you on Friday, where we'll talk about more horrifying things in space and nonsense.
Oh, the nonsense is a lot of fun this week. That's going to be exciting.
You say bye?
Oh, yeah. Bye.